Hi and welcome to the show. Today I'm joined by a man who truly is a jack of all trades. He's a former presenter on CapitalFM in Kenya, has worked as a lawyer and sits on numerous boards ranging from commerce and farming to conservation and education. He's currently the chairman of the Kenya Film Commission and is passionate about taking the Kenyan film industry to the next level and making Kenya the preferred African filming destination. He also runs a farm, is a player both on and off the polo pitch, practices environmental law, develops properties, and it has been said he can dance the salsa like a Brazilian. Chris Foote, welcome to The Scoop. Chris, my brother, it's great to have you here, man. Thank you very much. Let's rest this rumor of you dancing the salsa like a Brazilian.
You know,
is that true?
I would like to lie between my teeth and say I am a great dancer, but I'm not. I mean, I'm okay.
So where did this come from, the Brazilian side? You've been to Brazil?
I'd like to say there's some PR person turning it out there, but not at all. I mean, from my Mzungu side, I dance pretty well. From my African side, I am a atrocious.
Which should be the other way around.
It should be.
It should be. It's the Kalenjin side that has let you down in terms of the dancing.
On the dancing, on the lower half it hasn't, but yeah, on the top half, yeah.
Chris, early years, growing up, you know, you said you're of mixed race.
Yes.
Growing up in Kenya, part Kalenjin, part English, what was it like here?
You know, we were very lucky. I think of all the countries I've visited around the world, Kenya has got one of the highest mixes really of interracial marriages. And, or I think the Americans say biracial.
Yeah,
I always get all the terms.
Politically correct. I
get all the terms mixed up all the time. But you know, my parents met. My father had come out to work for the British government at the time, and liked it so much he stayed. And when he was here, met my mother. She came in to complain in the office one day, and he fell in love with her and pursued her for a while. My grandfather was having none of it, on my mother's side, and then eventually my uncles told my dad to hang in there, and. Eventually, my grandfather agreed, with one caveat. My father had to go get circumcised at the age of 44.
Oh, that must have been fun for him.
Yeah, I think he looks on that with fond memories. No, so yeah, as a background, but as you speak to anyone of mixed race in Kenya, we all grew up knew each other. And actually, I saw the other day, there was a wonderful article on how many of our politicians actually have European wives, you know, as much as they might go around the country pretending otherwise. We were very...
Or trying to hide them.
Or hide them, exactly.
Yes.
A wonderfully integrated country. Right. So there was no problem really. And as you know, going to school here, we have all shapes and sizes and colours.
And you went to Kenton College, which was one of the elite premier primary schools. You know, other than the one that I went to, which was Banda, which was much better. You know, it was a Kenton College, has no knowledge, old age is bread and porridge, something like that. Yeah, I remember that. So you had the tacky, the whip, or the cane.
You see, you went to Band, you say tacky. We had the cane.
Well, you had cane and tacky. Tacky was the first offence.
No, they just skipped directly to the cane. There was no middleman. And our headmaster, who was both a sadist and a racist, delightfully, would open the cupboard and he'd have a rack of about 6 canes. And he ran this algorithm in his brain that could produce the most amount of pain by looking at your backside and the cane. A whippy one, a thick one. And luckily I was only there for 2 years. But it was...
Why such a short time?
Well, my parents wanted me to... My father was from Britain and decided they wanted me to go to a prep school in England. So I was packed off to prep school in England, I think primarily because I thought I'd get a scholarship if I went to it. But sadly, I let them down on that one. So it was throwing good money after bad. But then I went from this school where we got beaten by the cane and there were no girls to this wonderful, idyllic prep school in the Sussex countryside with girls. And we used to get beaten by the slipper. So my brother and I turned up with like an inch of dead skin on our behinds, and this was like being tickled. It was we ran amok. Yeah.
So you went with your brother. Now tell me about your siblings.
My siblings, I've got an older brother, Paris Foote, who lives between here and UK, and I've got a younger brother, James Foote, who's much younger. He's 8 years younger, so he's 18. No.
Yeah,
that's us.
10 years ago.
10 years ago, yeah. So that's us, and both my parents passed on, and my mother when I was much younger in a car accident in Nairobi, and my father about 10 years ago.
And how was that transition from being born in Kenya, brought up here, to moving to England? I mean, miserable weather.
I loved
delightful weather, one of the two, depending on what you like.
Exactly. The 4 days of sunshine were great. No, I loved it. I really enjoyed it. Great people, great activities. You know, I was very blessed to be able to go to a good school. And of course, you know, they all thought we ride around on elephants and live in mud huts. And so I played along with that.
For a while,
Yeah, for a while, until they realized it wasn't the case. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and it got me to university, and I didn't make a great number of good friends there. Most of my good friends came from university, actually.
This was St Andrews Tory now.
No, St Andrews,
St Andrews University
in
not
Scotland.
St Andrews
Yeah, St Andrews in Scotland.
St Andrews, very prestigious university.
I mean, a great
Prince
university.
William has gone there.
Prince William follows in my shoe. Prince William.
Yes,
I go to Northern Kenya.
Anywhere
He goes
you go.
there.
Yeah.
I play polo. He starts playing polo. I mean, Prince William, if you're listening, it's time to just do your own thing, buddy.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a great place. When I was there, it was not quite as prestigious as it is now. I don't think I'd have got in with my current grades, but after the Foot Library was built, they were very welcoming. No, it was a lot of fun. I always say it was like 4 years at a country club with a degree thrown in at the end.
What did you study?
Bizarrely enough, I studied marine and environmental biology.
So absolutely nothing to do with what you do now.
Nothing. Well, actually,
other than the farming side, maybe.
And some of the conservation I'm involved in. I'm involved in quite a bit of conservation, so it did pay off. But at the time, I'd always wanted to be as a kid, and I think most kids in Kenya, I wanted to either be a safari rally driver, you remember Sheka Meta and everyone like that, Joginder Singh and everyone like that, or a game warden. I just wanted those two things. So I thought if I do some environmental stuff, then it's there, and then I ended up doing a conversion course into law, but I still use it. I could still give you the Latin names for all the different types of seaweed.
So why the shift from marine biology to law?
Well, yeah, interesting. I was
again very extreme.
Very extreme, but I've always believed in change, and I thought then, and I guess I do now, that you can affect change in many ways, but two of the main areas, especially if in a growing country like Kenya, is either through law or politics. So I decided at that stage to go into law, and I was very keen on doing human rights law and so forth.
Did they put any pressure on you in terms of a career path to follow? Were they? Yeah. Did they ever say, we want you to do this, or want you to take over the family business, or inherit, X, Y, and Z?
I mean, they gave us a pretty wide lead, but they were very clear that if we had the only thing they would do for us was a good education, and if we screwed that up, we're on our own. Of course, at some stage I did, and of course they threw me the lifeline. But
so tell me about the screw up.
Oh,
when did you screw? No.
One day my children will be watching this, and
they should know because mine do.
Yeah, Salim, you'll come to my house one day, and I have on the wall my old school reports, and it's self-evident that I was not the best pupil. And the day I have children, that school report is going to be hidden. And
But why do you keep it on your wall? Just to remind yourself?
No. I'd like to say, it made me a better person. Not at all. It's just so humorous. And those are the days where teachers took the time to write.
Yeah, absolutely.
It wasn't B+ could do better.
Little books.
Yeah, little
books. Used to give you in every subject.
And they would spend a good, 10 sentences basically explaining why your parents should beat you, or how ghastly you were and everything. But they're so humorous. And if nothing else, I've kept them for that. And also to show people that despite their best predictions, I turned out okay.
As George Bush Jr. said at a recent graduation, he said, all of a university, and he said, all you A students and with honors, well done, congratulations, you've done wonderfully well. Yeah. You'll go on to have great careers and do very well. For all you C students, you can still be president of the United States.
Exactly.
See, so there you can
go. Funny you said that. My prep school headmaster had this saying, and I remember him saying it at speech day one day. He said, to all you kids who didn't win prizes, just remember, in my experience, the guys who leave here with the lowest grades turn up with the biggest cars. Eventually. Yeah.
We'll be right back with Chris Wood. Stay with me. Hi, welcome back. I'm here with Chris Wood. Chris, coming back, the university's done. Yeah. You got your degrees, done your law at the temple.
Yeah.
The move back to Kenya. Why come back?
Why come back? I'd always wanted to come back home. I'd always wanted to contribute to something in Kenya. And that coupled with the fact my father was quite elderly, I'd been at boarding school since I was 7, I thought actually I'd like to come and spend some time with him and, rather than doing a sort of chunks of 3 weeks, be able to sort of talk to him end of every day after you've come back from work and he can ask you to pick up some milk. So I came back from that, which was a real blessing because he passed on a year or two later. I'm just really excited about coming home. So I came back and I started working for a law firm here. Worked for a couple of law firms and then saw the light and repented and stopped being a lawyer. Yeah.
Did you do any work in the UK when you were there? Did you ever work for anyone, get a salary and kind of take home?
I worked for a set of chambers 1 Middle Temple Lane, which mainly did commercial crime and fraud and criminal stuff. Quite appropriate,
just
really.
Really good to come back here with.
Well, it was like working with the National Assembly here. Just joking, Mishmua. But anyway, yeah, so very, very similar.
Yeah.
Very intriguing, very intriguing.
And so coming here, you get into law school.
Yeah.
You get into the law firms here.
Yeah.
What was it? How different was it from the UK? You know, in terms of coming into a system that really wasn't a system, and
Was
law
not what
is
it could be,
yeah,
I think
law is a little bit of a kind of make it up as you go along kind of thing here.
You know what Mickey Mouse lawyers you've got. Anyway, no, I mean the issue here, which I found. I was an advocate, which is, as a barrister, you go to court, you put on your wig and your gown. So apart from the cross-dressing element, which was always interesting, was the fact that you could sort of go and argue a case on the merits, and there was a wonderful camaraderie at the bar. And unlike the American system where you personalize it and you take on your client's case and you hate everyone else who's against them, you'd slog it out at 4 a.m, you'd go to the robing room, you'd have lunch together, you'd laugh about how ridiculous both your clients were, then you go back out and represent them. And it was wonderful, and you knew genuinely that your case would be judged on the merit and on your competence. And I didn't do any advocacy here. When I was here, I was busy. I actually ended up doing a lot of company and commercial law. It wasn't that exciting, to be honest, because what I liked was the people aspect of law. So really at that point there, I decided the second phase of trying to affect change was politics. So I stood for Parliament, and that was an interesting game.
And what year was this?
2007-8, that very quiet year.
Oh, that very quiet election.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very
Well, what
quiet,
seat were you vying for?
I stood for where my mother's family is from, a place called Mogotio in Baringo, Baringo County now. Well, actually, no, it's not anymore. It's in Nakuru. But very interesting.
And how was that experience? I mean, you'd never been in politics before. You were kind of a Muzungu, going back home. You got this you're very English. How did the constituents see you?
Well, suffice to say I didn't win, that says one thing. But bizarrely enough, I think I clocked at about 8,000 votes, and I think the winner, rightly or wrongly, and of course I wouldn't allege anything, correctly got 13,000 votes. Bizarrely enough, their family have become very good friends with me since. But it was very interesting. I was very naive. I did a couple of interesting things when I first arrived. I capped how much money I would spend, and I said I won't spend a penny more or a penny less. And that stopped me becoming bankrupt. And I could see how these politicians throw money, mortgage a house, etc. I hit that. And the second thing I did was I'm a great believer, if people believe in you, they'll raise the money. So I raised half the money and my friends raised half the money. And if you can't get people to raise money, it means they don't believe in you. And the third thing I said I'm not going to pay for a single vote. So come voting day, when the electorate were looking for some largesse as they were voting, I refused.
Right.
And my numbers just went like that. And you know what? And I can understand from their perspective, which is they have politicians who come, this is across Kenya, who come and promise you the world. You vote for them, you don't see them again for 5 years. So their point is, listen, give us something now, because you're not going to give us anything for the next 5 years. So at least pay us something now. It was brutal. It took me many, many months to recover. And then, of course, we went straight into the post-election violence. And where our farm is in Molo is right in the thick of it. So I was out of the frying pan into the fire, and that was pretty ghastly, because every night you're out and you're on patrol, and we're very lucky because we have good relationships with the community, so we weren't actually affected ourselves, but all around us there was mayhem and tragedy, and it was really horrendous.
So tell me about your journey into broadcasting. So doing radio, why pick radio for one? Is that something that you had a passion for before?
I do a lot of commentating at Polo, and one day I was commentating, and Capital guys were listening. They came to watch the Polo, and they said, "Hey, you've got apart from a face from radio, you've also got talent here. Why don't you come and do a sound check for us?" And after a bit of negotiations, we worked out I could do the radio show in the morning, and then go to my work by 11 o'clock. So I had 2 very happy years at CapitalFM, and great team of people, and great co-presenters mostly. There was one I discovered the other day who I met. I thought we got on perfectly well, and she announced rather grandly that she actually hated my guts. But the other 3 or 4, whose name
haven't announced it yet.
Yeah, whose names didn't begin with W, actually quite liked it. So that, but it's great. And listen, what I love about the Capital listeners are, they're the thinking listeners. You know, so we didn't have to do any of this stuff about who's sleeping with who, and it was like real issues. You complain about something or bring it up. By the end of the show, a minister or a MD of a company is called up to explain or to try and sort out the problem.
What are you most proud of in terms of all your many accomplishments? Now, what are you most proud of?
I think probably some of the things I'm most proud about, my involvement in the church. I'm a sort of practicing Christian, involved with a lot of, particularly with my last church in the UK, really involved there, and I love the stuff we did there with prisoners and with the homeless. Really enjoyed that. Here, although it was unpopular then and perhaps still is, I was very much involved in the No camp with the Constitution. And the No camp really had a whole load of politicians who wanted to retain the status quo. And then it had a group of us, a very, very small group of us, who actually had read the Constitution and felt Kenya deserved something better. And we worked day and night, without being allied to any of the politicians, to really remove some of the really ghastly elements in the Constitution, which we successfully managed to do. And one day we might get a pat on the back for that. There was some horrible stuff in there. There's still a lot of faults in it, and I wish we had taken more time to develop it rather than rush into it. But that's something else I feel, that's a little something I did for Kenya, I think, on that regard. Yeah.
We'll be right back with Chris Foot. Stay with me. Hi, welcome back. I'm here with Chris Foot. Chris, conservation is something that's very close to your heart. But we're in the midst of a crisis that I don't think we've ever seen before in terms of poaching, in terms of the loss of our wildlife, as well as the environment, the deforestation, and the way we're treating our what I call our inheritance. It's something very important. What are some of the things that you would like to see done or are doing on the conservation side?
Yeah. Well, I sit on a couple of conservation boards. My pet issue at the moment really is, particularly on the poaching side, is we have not come up with a correct model for conservation. And it's very unpopular to say it, but in the main, tourism has not been a good conservation model. It has been an end user of conservation, but it hasn't been there's a few exceptions, some very good conservancies are doing good stuff, but in the main it hasn't been. And I would like us to completely reevaluate our conservation model. And it has to go back to the fact that the community has to have economic benefit from the animals. And we had a wildlife policy for many years which had been hijacked by Western animal rights groups. And that needs to be reversed, because most of our wildlife, 70% of our wildlife, is outside game parks and in places where tourists won't go. So at the moment, we're relying on the goodwill of the community who are having their crops trampled and they're being injured to look after that wildlife. And we need to go to a place where the community says, I have an economic benefit in that elephant, in that buffalo, in that antelope. And because I've got economic, treat it like livestock. Not very popular, treat it like livestock. So I can sell that buffalo, I can trade that buffalo, I can trade that meat. So I'll make sure we have lots of them. I'll make sure we have plenty of this. And I think we have to go down that avenue. And it's the term is consumptive utilization. And I mean, it's ridiculous now. If you want to buy a zebra skin, let's say, for your office, you have to go and buy one from Tanzania or from South Africa. And yet we have hundreds of thousands of zebra. Not Grevy zebra, obviously, but Burchells, which and we cull them because there are too many. But they're not allowed to trade the skins. Now, if the community could trade the skins or trade the meat, they'll make sure next year they have another 10,000 to trade. And it becomes farming. And it's not sexy. I think we have to accept the fact the days of elephant walking wild across Africa, we're in closed systems. And closed systems need management. And whilst I'm not a hunter, I can see the economic and conservation argument for that if it's properly managed. Kenya, up until 1977, was the lead agency in Africa for regulation of hunting. So the South Africans, Botswana, Zambians, Zimbabweans, all those hunting communities came to Kenya to learn how to do it properly. If we got the right systems in place, I'd be all for doing that, if we had the right systems and the right balances and checks. But the community has got to be put at the forefront of any form of conservation, and that's what we need to change. So that's just one of the things I believe we need to change.
Tell me about the Film Commission. Again, film is something that's, you said, is passionate for you.
Yeah.
out of Africa put Kenya on the map in a
Yeah.
big way.
Yeah.
And we still are kind of living off that in a lot of ways, but we missed out on some massive films that were done about Africa, about Kenya even, that went down and were shot in different parts, in Morocco, in South Africa, other places. Why haven't we been able to build off the success of Out of Africa, Constant Gardener to a certain degree? What have we done wrong on that front? And as a filmmaker, you know, it's something that I'm obviously interested in as well.
Yeah. Well, you're right. We dropped the ball. We dropped the ball at a time when globally people realized what film can do and what film and TV, when we say film, we talk audiovisual generally, can do for economy. Classic case, in France, it contributes about 1% of GNP. $18 billion goes towards it. Nigeria employs 1 million people, nearly 2% of GNP. You know, there's a lot of countries who realized film and TV can add value. And the main thing they did, certainly in terms of feature films, was tax rebates. And if you go to any of the top countries now, who are Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, Canada, UK, tax rebates. And we were slow on that. So a number of really good movies. Kenya trumps most of Africa in terms of, we have the topology, we've got, you know, snow, desert, forest, beach, tropical rainforest, you name it.
And talent as well, in terms of
Talent, we've got depth of crew here, we've got all the African cultures in one space, you know, so you want a Somali looking person, a Warabu looking person, Bantu, we've got it there, you don't have to ship them down to South Africa. We've got all of that going for us, but we didn't have a tax rebate. And South Africa successfully has run a tax rebate system for the last sort of 10 years, between 30 and 35%, depending on the qualifying bracket. And for the first time this year, we went and saw the president. He agreed we needed to do something about it. And in the finance bill this year, we got the first ever tax rebate agreed. Now that is going to be a game changer. And we're now working with Treasury to try and make sure we've got the regulations, the rules, the fund. You know, it's a very particular process. And if we can deliver on that rebate in the next 8-9 months, the number of movies who've said, Chris, we would love to film in Kenya if you could give us a tax rebate, we'll get those movies coming back. And especially in this time where tourism has hit a rock bottom in Kenya, film tourism, you just have to look what Frozen has done in Norway, increased tourism 200%, one movie, Lord of the Rings in New Zealand, something like Braveheart for Scotland. You could go through all these countries where one movie, even in Kenya now, most people who go to Safari for the first time quote having seen Out of Africa as their main influence.
I want to go see Karen Blixen's home and whatever.
So you can imagine what we can do. But the problem is the president has understood it 100%. Trying to get the people below him to understand that is a hard call. We've got a pitiful budget as Kenya Film Commission. And I say that unashamedly because as a country who wants to put audiovisual as one of our economic pillars, giving us 11.2 million shillings, I can't even look the South Africans in the eye. That's what they get for pocket money. Yeah. You know. Anyway, that's another story.
On the amount of things that you do, there's a lot of things that you do that take up your day. How do you balance personal and professional life, and what do you do when you're not working?
You know, I've never really had a problem, as my teachers observed early on, with enjoying myself. I think, you know, I'm passionate about fly fishing. That's my one thing. Anywhere I go in the world, I'll take my fly rod. My little
you have a very impressive list of hobbies. Yeah. When I saw it on your some of your data. Yeah. I mean, fly fishing, reading, sailing, squash, tennis, hockey, exploring, paragliding. You're a qualified safari guide as well.
I enjoy the outdoors. I love nature. I believe it's a great way of getting a glimpse of God. You know, and we live in God's own country, so why not enjoy it? So there's that side. There's polo, which I thoroughly enjoy. I suspect when I get married, the new management might encourage me to leave that behind. But it's been
a lot of this. I think it'll be out.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can pretty much say that. Yeah. You've done an enormous amount in a very young life. You're still a young man.
Thank you.
The future. What's next for you? Marriage?
Marriage, hopefully. No, marriage very soon.
Very soon?
Very soon, I
okay.
Hope. And I guess I'll carry on doing my entrepreneur thing. If the government sees fit to use me, I'm there. I really believe in public service. I think it's a great honor to be able to sign off your obedient servant. And I would love to play a role in government at some stage. And yeah, family, love to have a family and move forward with that. Exciting times, yeah, just change. I think there's different seasons in life.
Chris, the show's called The Scoop, so I asked my guests to tell me something about them that hopefully nobody in the world knows. So it could be a early wedding present for your bride-to-be. So tell me the scoop with Chris Foot.
The scoop, gosh, long and hard. I've had a nose job.
Really?
Yeah. Now you might want to know why.
Let me explain why.
No, at school
And who?
Well, exactly. No, at school every school has every class has a psycho. You know, everyone has a psycho. The guy you prod and then you run like heck because he goes ballistic. Anyway, I made the mistake of borrowing the bicycle of the school psycho. And we had a disagreement as to whether he'd given me permission or not. And he expressed his disagreement by punching me as hard as he could on the nose and breaking my nose. And it went literally as flat as a pancake. And
how old were you then?
I was 17. And I thought I could hide it from my mother. I got back to Kenya. And I was speaking like this. And my mother, of course, noticed immediately. And I said, I fell down the stairs. And then she beat it out of me that I'd been beaten. So no, she marched me off to get my nose restructured.
And you could do that here in Kenya?
They did it in Kenya. It was one of the most painful experiences. And who knows what nose I would have had if somebody hadn't punched me. Yeah. That's the first, by the way. No one knows that.
Nobody knows that.
As they walk past the street, they'll be like, Yanni, plastic surgery.
And that's the surgical scoop with Chris Foot. Join me again next week when I'll be talking to yet another great African personality. From me and the entire team of The Scoop from Nairobi, Kenya, thanks for watching. Chris, asante sana, man. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
A lot of
that
fun.
was brilliant. That
Real
was
treat.
really,
Get me back whenever you need.
really nice. I really enjoyed that.
Very relaxed as well.